Eiffel Tower is the Iron Tower in Paris. The tower has also become the symbol of France all over the world. It takes its name from the French civil engineer Gustave Eiffel, who built it. One of the biggest tourism attractions, the Eiffel Tower attracts 6 million tourists annually. In 2002, the total number of visitors reached 200 million. The Eiffel Tower was built between 1887 and 1889 by Gustave Eiffel's company as the entrance gate of the Expo 1889 Paris Fair, organized within the framework of the 100th anniversary celebrations of the French Revolution. In fact, the architect of the tower is not Gustave Eiffel, but Stephen Sylvester, who designed it upon the order of the Swiss Maurice Koechlin. 3,000 workers assembled 18,038 iron parts with 2.5 million rivets over 26 months. The fact that there were no deaths was surprising under the conditions of that day. However, the tower also attracted the reaction of the people of Paris, who saw it as a stain of shame. While some artists compared it to a huge street lamp, they claimed that it would damage the visual reputation of Paris like a factory chimney. Thus, a campaign was launched among the artists and literary figures of the period, and during this campaign, declarations signed by famous artists were distributed. Today, the Eiffel Tower is considered one of the most beautiful architectural structures in the world. Parisians call her the Iron Lady. The Louvre Museum is the largest art museum in the world. It was installed in the Louvre Palace in Paris, the capital of France. It is located on the banks of the Seine River passing through the city. In 2017, it was chosen as the most visited art museum in the world with 8.1 million visitors. The Louvre was built in its original form by Philippe Auguste in the early 13th century, 1204. The palace, which takes its name from the English word lower, meaning strength, power, later became a royal center in the 14th century. When the Louvre was moved to the banks of the Loire in the 15th century, it fell into disrepair and the construction of the Tuileries section of the palace began in 1564, but it was completed during the time of Napoleon. The palace, which became a museum in 1793, suffered a great fire in 1871. The building, which has survived until today with repairs and changes, took its final shape in 1932. With the decision taken by the French presidency in 2021, a woman, Laurence Descartes, was appointed to the museum management for the first time after 228 years. The Louvre Museum collection, consisting of 8 different sections, hosts more than 380,000 works of art, of which only 35,000 are on display due to the policies of the Louvre Museum. The ban on photographing antiquities belonging to public areas has led to controversy. This decision, taken and implemented in 2005, was condemned by visitors and art commentators on the grounds that it was illegal and contrary to the cultural and public mission of national museums. The museum accepts this ban. He defended it by claiming that cameras and phone flashes damage the texture of the photographed works, causing them to wear out over time and deteriorate their integrity. However, people believe that this ban is limited to buying postcards, etc. from the museum's souvenir shops. They protested against the administration, thinking it was an incentive to buy the photographs. As a result of the incidents, the ban was partially lifted and only photography, without flash, was allowed. Notre-Dame Cathedral is a world-famous cathedral located in Paris, France. It is named in honor of the Virgin Mary. The Gothic building is located in the eastern part of the Ile de la Cite, on the banks of the Seine River, like all other important buildings of Paris. Its entrance faces west. Known as the most outstanding example of French Gothic architecture, Notre Dame is also one of the first Gothic cathedrals, and its construction continued throughout the Gothic period. It is thought that before Christianity reached the region, there was a Jupiter temple belonging to the Gallo-Roman culture in the same location. The fact that the sculptures and engraved glass in the cathedral contain a worldliness that has not been seen since the Middle Ages Roman architectural style is due to the heavy influence of the naturalism movement on the works. As well as being a popular tourist destination, it is currently a Roman Catholic cathedral and home to the Archdiocese of Paris. In the early 19th century, Paris city planners wanted to demolish the cathedral due to its lack of maintenance. Famous French writer Victor Hugo wrote his novel The Hunchback of Notre-Dame to attract public attention. Roman played a major role in the renovation of the cathedral by starting a campaign to save the cathedral. Additionally, the novel was turned into a musical. The name of the musical is Notre-Dame de Paris. Songs of this musical, such as Belle, Tu vas me détruire, Desher, have become classics and integrated with the novel. Sacré-Cœur Basilica is an important Christian settlement located in the Montmartre neighborhood of Paris. It is the most visited monument in France after Notre-Dame Cathedral, with 10 million visitors in 2006. Montmartre has always been a historic religious site in Paris. It was a sacred place for the Gallic Druids, temples to Mars and Mercury dedicated by the ancient Romans. Paris is the oldest church, the Church of Saint-Pierre de Montmartre, was built by the Montmator Kingdom monastics. It was built during the reign of Louis XIV. And finally, the construction of the Basilique du Sacré-Cœur, which started in 1875, was completed in 1914. Basilique du Sacré-Cœur is located at the highest altitude in Paris. Its construction was decided on July 23, 1874, in memory of the French who lost their lives during the Franco-Prussian War, with a law submitted by the French National Assembly. The construction, which started on June 16, 1875, was undertaken almost entirely by the French people. Basilique du Sacré-Cœur, whose construction was completed in 1914, was opened only after World War I. Basilique du Sacré-Cœur, which is in the shape of a cross, has 4 domes. Its central dome, which is 83 meters high, has a small lantern, which means lanterno in the architectural vocabulary. Basilique du Sacré-Cœur, which has an eclectic architect inspired by Roman architecture, Byzantine architecture, Saint Front de Périgord Cathedral and Hagia Sophia, has become an architectural example for other churches built in the 20th century. Champs-Élysées Street or Champs-Élysées Boulevard is a famous street in Paris, the capital of France. They show it as the most beautiful street in Paris and call it the most beautiful boulevard in the world among France. Its name is taken from the Elysian Plains, which are presented as paradise in Greek mythology. The Champs-Élysées is located in the 8th region of the northern distribution of Paris. It starts from Concorde Square, where the Luxor obelisk is located, and Biter from Charles de Gaulle Square, formerly Star Square, where the victim of the Arc de Triomphe is located. The first kilometer of the 1950-meter-long boulevard is flat, and the second kilometer is hilly. Its width is 70 meters. Since the road has straight lines, the Louvre Palace, the Arc de Triomphe du Carrousel, the Tuileries Garden and the Luxor obelisk are lined up respectively, and the Arch de la Défense, located outside Paris a little west. The French organization named this straight-line path Axe Historique. It is a place flocked by foreign and domestic tourists. At the bottom of the boulevard, there is greenery Marigny Park, and more or less buildings Theatre Marigny Petit Palais, Grand Palais, Palais de la Découverte, Élysée Palace. At the top of the boulevard, there are luxury boutiques, cinemas, Lido Cabaret, theaters, Theatre de Champs-Élysées, restaurants, Fouquet's, and famous cafes. The Palace of Versailles or Palace of Versailles is a historic French chateau. The construction of the first building of the palace started in 1661, and it was later expanded at different times. The palace is used as a museum today. The Palace of Versailles is typically French in that it is planned very broadly. Large dimensions were used in this palace for the first time after the Roman Empire. The reason for this was the rich and centralized royal administration. Because the political environments were different in Italy, Germany, and England, palaces such as the Palace of Versailles could not be built for a long time. An interesting feature of the palace is that no toilet or bathroom was considered in its construction. The reason for this was that, in the understanding of nobility at that time, nobles could meet their needs wherever they wanted. Versailles is the end of the French Baroque and the beginning of the Classical style. It summarizes French history, like the Louvre. The garden-side facade of the Palace of Versailles is Louvre's last work and became an example of the most classical French architecture. There are 3 different building groups around the marble courtyard. In 1979, the Palace and Garden of Versailles were declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. The Seine River is an important river in northwestern France. It is the second longest river in France. It rises in Burgundy and flows into the English Channel near Le Havre. The average flow rate of the 776 kilometers long river is 500 cubic meters per second. This river, which is located on the islands in the middle of Paris, Ile de la Cité and Ile Saint-Louis, and on both banks, is also important from a touristic point of view. The Seine River separates the 2 cities. Seagoing vessels can sail as far as Rouen on the lower Seine. Seine River. It is connected to other important rivers of Europe such as the Meuse, Saale, Schelde, Rhine and Rhône through various channels. That's why it is the most important waterway in France. There are 37 bridges across the Seine in Paris, the most famous being Pont Alexandre III and Pont Neuf, and dozens of bridges outside Paris. The last bridge across the river is the Normandy Bridge, connecting Le Havre and Honfleur, and the 9th longest cable-stayed bridge in the world. The Seine rises in the commune of the Source-Seine, about 30 kilometers, 19 miles, northwest of Dijon. The resource has been owned by the city of Paris since 1864. A series of closely related small ditches or depressions provide headwaters with an artificial cave arranged to highlight and contain a putative main source. The cave contains statues of a fairy, a dog, and a dragon. There are also ruins of a Gallo-Roman temple buried in the same place. Small statues of Dea Sequana and other ancient photos here are now exhibited in the Archaeological Museum of Dijon. The Musée d'Orsay is a state museum located in Paris. The museum, located on the left bank of the Seine River, was a former train station. The building was built between 1898 and 1900. The Orsay Museum contains sculptures, paintings, furniture, and photographs, mostly of French art, created between 1848 and 1915. The museum is best known for its extensive Impressionist collection, including works by painters such as Monet, Degas, Renoir, and Cezanne. This collection was exhibited at the Galerie Nationale du Jeu de Paume until the museum's opening in 1986. The Orsay Museum was established in the building of the former Orsay train station, which was built in 1898 for the Paris International Exhibition. It was opened by former French President François Mitterrand on December 1, 1986. Its construction was carried out between 1983 and 1986 by French architects Renaud Bardon, Pierre Colbach, and Jean-Paul Philippon. Italian architect Guy Aleni helped French architects to transform the station into a museum. The Panthéon is a building located in the Quartier Latin, 5th arrondissement, neighborhood of Paris. Although it was built as a church dedicated to Genevieve, the patron saint of Paris, it lost its church function after the French Revolution and became a mausoleum where important French intellectuals were buried. It is one of the earliest examples of neoclassical architecture, with its columned facade inspired by the Pantheon in Rome. Since it is located on the Sainte-Geneviève Hill, Montagne Sainte-Geneviève, in the 5th arrondissement of Paris, it has a view of the entire city. Its foundation is King Louis XV. Although it was laid in 1758 by the Order of Louis, its construction was not completed until 1789 due to financial difficulties. The government that came to power after the French Revolution did not allow the Pantheon to be used as a church and turned the building into a mausoleum where French intellectuals would be buried. Since then, the Pantheon has been converted into a church twice, but then returned to its function as a mausoleum. Physicist Léon Foucault proved that the Earth rotates around itself with a 67-meter Foucault pendulum that he suspended from the dome of this building in 1851, and this experiment aroused great interest in France and the whole world. In the mid-19th century, a rumor emerged that religious fanatics had stolen Voltaire's body from the Pantheon and thrown it in a garbage heap. When Voltaire's coffin was opened in 1897, It was understood that the rumors were not true. The Luxembourg Garden is a collection of gardens of various styles located in the 6th arrondissement of Paris. Built in 1612, during the reign of Marie de' Medici of the Medici family, the garden is a preferred meeting place for Parisians, students, and strollers, and also attracts the attention of visitors from all over the world. In 1611, Marie de' Medici decided to have a replica of the Pitti Palace built in her hometown, Florence. He bought the Luxembourg Hotel, which is known as the Small Luxembourg Palace today, and started the construction of the new palace. The original garden was 8 hectares, but Marie de' Medici increased the area of the garden to 30 hectares by taking the surrounding areas in 1630. The landscaping of the expanded area was given to Jacques Boisseau, one of the founders of the new French gardening concept. Subsequent monarchs did not care about the garden. In 1780, Louis XVIII, then Count of Provence, Louis sold the eastern side of the garden and opened it for construction. After the French Revolution, Directory leaders increased the area of the garden to 40 hectares. Jean Chalgrin, who was also the architect of the Arc de Triomphe, took on the task of restoring the garden. At the end of the 19th century, the garden contained a theater, a music corner, greenhouses, beehives, a conservatory where sculptures and modern works of art were exhibited, a rose garden, and approximately 70 statues.